All right, okay. I finally got home to my little lair, my sanctuary, my place of peace, my dominion. DJ and I had a huge day today. The transmission on my excursion. Anybody who knows me, I have what would that be? A 20, almost 6 year old excursion. Okay, that's my daily driver. I know that sounds strange, 26-year-old daily driver, but anybody who knows me knows that my excursion is my baby, one of my most prized favorite possessions. Well, a couple days ago, the transmission started giving me some trouble. So, I'm hoping it's nothing real expensive. I was going to get up under there and check it out myself. I jacked it up, got under there, was reminded how old, fat, and stiff I am. Climbed out from under it, called my friend Brian Haynes at Haynes Automotive, just right across the Mississippi state line from Wilmer, and took it to him. So he gonna check it out for me. He's a professional. So we had to get that taken up there today, and then left from there. We went to the little rental-car place in my 93 F-250. All my vehicles are old, just like me. They old, strong, and pretty. So, we went to the little Hertz place, and they didn't have the truck we had reserved. Just so you know, if you reserve a rental car through a third party like Priceline or Expedia, Travelocity, their inventory they say the car rental place has is not necessarily up to date. So you might end up at that rental car place where you reserve that Dodge Ram 2500 Bighorn Edition. And you get there and they say, I don't know why they told you that was here. We don't even carry big trucks like that. And then you got to figure out, well, what I do now. So that took a little while and everything. But while we were there, Deidre walked over to me and told me that she saw where Charlie Kirk had been shot. And she said, Bud, he's at the hospital. He's alive. I said, man, that's crazy. I'm thinking this must have been some little blue-haired, vitamin D deficient fella. Whatever, went on about my business. We left there. I had to go get me a haircut. Check this out. Check out this. Look at this. Yeah, look at me. See that? That's a masterpiece. That's a masterpiece. Look, put this away. Look at that. Yeah, see, I ain't lying. Yeah, Master Blends, Allen D, Spring Hill, right close to the museum and everything, where they have that monument artwork up. It just happens to be the colors of the rainbow flag, and then a little poles to be something that looks a lot like male genitalia doing this. It's real close to that there on Spring Hill. But anyway, went there. I was there for a long time. I usually have a good time when I go get my hair cut because it's a room full of folk. I don't think I've ever been in there. I wasn't the only white dude. I know that Alan and probably some of them other guys, but I know Alan has, less melanated clients, but I've just never managed to meet it there. So I was there. Anybody who's familiar with a black barbershop, a traditional black barbershop, knows there's a lot of crap talking back and forth and all, and that's just right up my alley. So I was there for a while, and then, we had to leave there and get something to eat. And all right, so I'm just now getting back home, and it was while we were on before we left the rental car place, I think it was, when we saw that he had actually passed away. And so that's very unfortunate. And I know that a lot of people on the right wing side with me, all of our different flavors and, groups and persuasions, they're all over the place talking about, different things, and R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. What's amazing to me is a lot of right-wing content creators that I listen to. Anyone who knows me knows that whether you're on the same side of the aisle with me or not, you do not have to agree with me 100% for me to give you an ear and to listen to you. I mean, you don't. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me completely, and I'm still going to give you an ear unless you're just being stupid. You're just wanting to try to use shame, insult, guilt, manipulation, innuendo, character assassination, and that kind of stuff to try to advance your argument. Well, I'm done with you then because you're just acting like a child, But, if you're relatively reasonable, you don't have to agree with me about anything. So on the right side of the aisle, there are a lot of talking head commentators, podcasters, people in the media and stuff that, are on the right. And, I listen to them. I kind of follow their content to one degree or another, even though I may not completely agree with everything they say. But as you would probably presume, if you're familiar with stuff that I posted on social media before, like before social media was even a thing, then you would know that I'm pretty hard-headed. I'm pretty cemented. I'm pretty stubborn. My mother used to talk about her father. My mother was born in 1944, but my grandfather was 42 years old when she was born. So it was not long before he turned 43 years old. So my grandfather was born in 1901, see. So we're talking about, a much older fella. But my mama used to say, that daddy, he'd argue with a light pole if the light pole was standing there long enough to hear him. Well, I think maybe I inherited that genetic propensity, or whatever. But anyway, so, some of my most, favorite, podcasters and, bloggers and that sort of stuff are a lot more on the I wouldn't say more extreme end, but a lot more of the less polite and gentle end, right? Put it up, I was just in a chat a moment ago, in a private chat on a fairly well-known podcast a second ago, and there was this young dude in there. He and I were disagreeing on whether or not you could be born gay. He believed that you could not be born gay, and I believe that you can be born gay. Now, don't misinterpret that I'm trying to say that it's a natural thing and we should accept it. That's a very deep argument I have there that we could go back and forth with. But anyway, that was our argument. He said to me something that's a very feminine thing to say, but a lot of young people will say this. He said, well, I really respect your view, but. And I told him, I said, man, don't respect my view. Don't respect my view at all. I said, you need to treat my view as if it's the scourge of the earth. I said, if you don't agree with my view, then you need to assemble an argument to come at me with that will completely decimate, completely disassemble, and just humiliate my belief in favor of advancing your own belief. So don't be polite and tell me, well, I really respect your belief, but no, don't respect my belief. You need to despise my belief and come at me to destroy my beliefs. You just completely you'll just remove it from the earth. I said, if you truly believe that your belief is correct and your belief will could affect civilization, the furtherance of society, a healthy society, then if you don't agree with me, you need to come at me with both guns blazing. Don't be respecting my belief. What the heck, man? We mean, come at me. Let's slug it out, Anyway, so on my end of the spectrum, it's like I've said many times, I posted many times that I am so conservative that I'll make Donald Trump look like a progressive. I mean, I'm way on out there, man. So Second Amendment is a favorite conservative talking point position to take, And people might say, well, what about a nuclear warhead? If the Second Amendment is absolute, the right to keep and bear arms, a nuclear warhead, that's an armament. Do you believe that somebody ought to be able to own a nuclear warhead? And most Second Amendment people who haven't really thought it out, or they're not really Second Amendment supporters, they're kind of fence strategists, they'll say, well, no. I don't mean nuclear missiles or warheads. No, of course not. That's unreasonable. Let them ask me that. What about nuclear warheads? I said, what about them? What, do you really believe somebody ought to be able to own a nuclear warhead? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what kind of crazy question is that? That's a weapon, ain't it? That's an armament. That's a tool of self-defense. Of course. And then they usually wig out. You just really, if the man has the money to buy it, he has the money to take care of it so that it doesn't accidentally blow up and, kill like thousands of people. I mean, he hasn't committed some violent crime. He's not mentally unstable. You don't have any reason to think that he would, use it to just kill him. But why shouldn't he own a nuclear weapon? Oh, well, because, he might go crazy and use it and kill a bunch of people. So you're saying that we should limit the human rights of others to defend themselves based on the possibility that they could one day use that weapon irresponsibly or use it for evil or whatever. So we can begin removing human rights for people based on crimes that they have not yet committed. Is that what you're saying? Okay, so I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, a Black Hawk helicopter, a fully armed Abrams tank. Well, certainly you don't believe they should be. Yes, certainly. Of course, why not? Here's what they usually bring up. Well, why would they need one? My human rights are not based on whether or not you think I need them. I don't know. Maybe he owns, 50,000 acres of land somewhere. He's got some sort of a range set up, just like a shooting range for high-powered rifles. Or maybe it's even like an amusement park. And he charges people a lot of money to come out there, get in the Abrams tank and drive around on a course and blow big holes in the ground for fun. I mean, who am I to tell him he can't do it, right? I mean, as long as he's not killing folks, as long as he's not committing crimes with that Abrams tank, why shouldn't he own it? I mean, and then you end up with the same argument that people do about why folks shouldn't be able to own private nuclear arms. I mean, a lot of this is just hyperbole, but I'm just using it for an example to show just how conservative I am, just how absolute I am, that I end up making people like Trump and most people on the right look more progressive. If not progressive, definitely centrist. They think, ooh, this guy, he's off his rocker. So anyway, naturally I follow podcasters that are a lot more towards that sort of a side of it, and it's really been unfortunate today, but in this regard, in addition to the obvious thing with Charlie Kirk's assassination, but because some of those podcasters look at guys like Charlie Kirk and they make fun of him just like people on the left do. They make fun of his big head and his little bitty face. They make fun of his features, and then they make fun of him because he's, cut in the mold of the good church boy who, was kind of harmless and never did anything wrong. And so they would poke fun at him a lot because he wasn't as outwardly aggressive, almost hostile, like people that are farther over to the area of conservatism where I live and breathe. They make fun of him and they put him down and stuff. And I haven't watched any of the podcasts or read the tweets or anything, but I've seen the little banners popping up, little updates popping up, where now they're like, oh, R.I.P. Charlie, you were a hero. You were such a good. I'm like, last night on your podcast, you was talking about, what a weasel he was and how weak he was, and he didn't need to be in the movement because he was diluting and then he gets shot. Here you are talking about what a martyr he is and how lucky we were to have him and stuff. It's just people like that. I post a lot. You probably see me post about it or do videos about it, about people, whether they're on the right, the left, the middle, the top, the bottom, the whatever. And they do all this talking, but they're really not standing on their actual principles that they actually hold. They either just want to complain and whine and carry on, or they're wanting to fit in on the bandwagon with people they're friends with. So they say that, but they really do not hold a principled position for what they claim. And so that enables them to do stuff like that, on Wednesday, on Wednesday night, or like Tuesday night, Charlie Kirk was a milk toast, jelly roll, cream puff, vitamin D deficient, grifting, this, that, and the third. And then on Wednesday, he gets assassinated, and all of a sudden, you got all this just great stuff to say about him and his life's work. Come on now. Ray Charles could see that's bull crap. I mean, if you didn't like Charlie Kirk on Tuesday, don't come on Wednesday when he gets assassinated on like live TV, basically. I know it wasn't television, but you get my point. He gets assassinated, and now all of a sudden you talking like Charlie Kirk was this just wonderful person. I mean, hold up for what you said on Monday and Tuesday. Stand on your principles, At any rate, so I've had plenty of time today because I've been too busy to really sit down and post anything, or whether it be a video or a text post or anything. But I've been thinking about it and kind of wrapped my mind around it. And so I was about to go to bed. I was actually just kind of like on the open panel of the No Fugazi podcast. That was kind of fun. I really kind of enjoyed that. I had them cracking up, and then I slaughtered them with some logic. I'm going to tell you. I'll post a video of my appearance as if I was some kind of celebrity. No. But I'll post it later. It was kind of fun. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, this gal here got no idea who she is, but this popped up on my Facebook feed a minute ago, so I screenshot it because this really, really sums up something I've been thinking about this whole event today. But I'm going to go ahead and give you a little spoiler. My commentary about the mindset that this gal here has, it ain't going to be what you think it is. It ain't going to be what you think it is. Trust me. Big Daddy got a surprise up his sleeve now. Check it out. This is what this gal says, the blonde theory. That should have told me right there that I didn't even need to read it because, Anyway, so I had to wait for the hubs. So that told me right there that this wasn't going to be something I wanted to read because I can't stand the word hubs. Hubs, kiddos, all them kind of weird little word. Veggies. Oh, God, I can't stand that. Veggies. Woo. Anyway, so I knew right then this was going to be bull crap. Excuse me there, I'm old. But, and everything, but I had to wait on the hubs to take a look at the videos first before I wrote this post. I've sat here for about 2 hours waiting to write it. That I don't know anything about this in Blonde Theory account of person, but you might say, well, that's just a bot, or that's some man who's posting his stuff, and he got that picture of that blonde chick because, a woman doing like political commentary in like podcasting and blogging and stuff is kind of a niche, kind of a unicorn. So people a lot of time will go listen to it just because she's a woman. So you think, well, that's what's going on here. No, when she sits there talking about, she starts this novel, this epic, like story that she's laying out instead of just stating her damn point. No, that's a woman wrote that. It's either a woman or an extremely feminized man. I've sat here for about 2 hours waiting to write it. It's just prepare yourself. What I'm about to say is going to be very profound and historic. Like boom, da-da-da. That's a woman or a very feminized man who wrote that. I've sat here for hours, I've sat here for about 2 hours. I don't care. Waiting to write it. Don't care about that either. There's that word again. Pubs. That's a professional hit. She wrote that as if that's some sort of a expert, unique sort of a perspective. Like, I guess she thinks that Hubs really knows some stuff when he issued that opinion. That's a professional hit. That shot from that distance, someone knew what they were doing. The old man was a decoy to give their sniper time to get out. This was a clearly thought out mission, quote unquote. Again, the drama is just really killing me. Again, this was obviously a pro hit. That shot is definitely in range for a trained marksman, usually within 300 yards or so. I'm so glad we got her husband to educate us on it. No doubt about it. Definitely all caps. Not a lone wolf bull crap either. This was planned. No kidding. This was planned. As if some dude was just riding around the university with a rifle with a scope and everything, because dude had to have a scope to pull that shot off. and just say, well, I don't have anything going on today. Well, oh, that's Charlie. Well, man, I forgot to get that deer rifle out of the trunk. Hey, man, I got a great idea. I mean, who think this was planned? No. Ray Charles could see this was planned or what. Anyway, that right there ain't nothing but breadcrumbs in the meatloaf, okay? That ain't nothing but filler. That's fluff. That's just non-essential information. Here's the point. And it's something been rolling around in my head all day. And if you don't believe me, I could say, well, Deidre can tell you because I said this to her not long after he died. But if you don't want to believe her because she's your wife, dang. Good Lord, if she can look at you naked and sleep with you, she's certainly going to agree with you with your lies, you know. You might say that, and there might be some validity to that. But if you wouldn't believe her, when I was at the barber shop, we were talking about it there, and I made this same, statement there. So maybe you believe Alan and all that. This was planned. Here's the part that I said to Deidre, and I talked about it at the barber shop. This is really this next part is the part that she wants to make sure that you believe in this post. Planned, folks. They are hunting us now. Yeah. They're hunting us now. Listen, this is my thing, okay? This is what I said to Deidre. This is what I talked about at the barbershop. This is what I said, okay? I said, it's going to be easy for people to say, the left did this. Those liberals, those progressives, Obama, Kamala Harris, they did this. They're hunting us now. And then my friends on the right, the statistical fact, like it or not, the educational level of those of us on the right is typically lower than the educational level of people on the left. Now, that doesn't mean that the left is smarter, more intelligent than people on the right. Education and intelligence are two different things. But the fact is, on average, when you come across the average conservative, you see, and the average liberal or progressive, on average, the educational level on the other side of the aisle is going to be higher. Doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean they're right. Okay, but it's going to be high. Joseph Stalin was educated. Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh, these people, they were educated. Doesn't mean what they believed and did was correct or true or right. That's the way it is. So also, I don't know any numbers to back this up, but it's reasonable to say that we on the right, that most of the firearms and other weapons owned in this country are owned by people who are some persuasion of a conservative. Or that's kind of a misnomer. A lot of people who are just kind of hobbyist, politically active people, they think that if you're not on the left, you're a conservative. Those people like me who actually know what they are talking about understand that there are a lot of people on the right who are nowhere close to conservative. But anyway, so, but people on the right, I would wager to say that most of the firearms in this country that, other than the army, the military, that most of the firearms are owned by people on the right. So here this lady is, they are hunting us now. So as I said, it's safe to, these people naturally would think, well, Charlie Kirk was standing up for the family. He was standing up for the Second Amendment. He was standing up for a whole bunch of conservative values. And so the people on the left didn't like what he was having to say. Oh, but they couldn't shut him up. So they killed him. And there'll be a whole bunch of people on the right who will be very, very willing to go load up their shotguns and their rifles and their pistols and all that kind of stuff. They're hunting us now. We need to get the guns out. You know, grab the pitchfork, Ma. We going liberal hunting. They coming for it. I hope they come to my house. I hope they do. They ain't but one way in and one way out of here. Found here after dark, you'll be found here in the morning. All that kind of stuff. See? Here is what I said to Deidre, and I was talking about a little bit at the barbershop today, and which is the whole purpose of this video here. If you have studied history, I'm talking about something beyond, 1776 or, the Germans and the Axis, World War II, and just simple surface level stuff. But if you have really studied history, which few people in this country have because they came through a government-run public school system who has been focusing for the last couple of generations on math, science, athletics, and social engineering, but not history or literature or philosophy, any of those kind of things. But if you studied history, then you understand, or you can understand, how tyranny works historically. Because the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. That's what Solomon said. King Solomon said, I have indulged in every pleasure known to man, and there is nothing new under the sun. But he said, ain't nothing new under the sun. Tyrants and criminals and that sort of stuff, they do it the same way now they did it 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. It's the same evil. It operates the same way. But if you study history and you see things like this happen, even though you may not know the facts, you may not know very much about what's actually going on with it, you can recognize the business plan, the format. You pick up on that 4/4 beat and you pretty well guess what the next lyric's gonna be. So I'm looking at this, and what I just want to just mention, tell you, think about it. I'm not saying I'm correct. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not some kind of soothsayer. But I'm just going to put this for consideration. It is possible that someone on the right or some allied organization said, Charlie Kirk is kind of the poster boy of the young, genuine, morally based, gentle, kind, but smart, conservative. He's kind of the darling, to one degree or another, of the conservative movement. Now, if we wanted to rile up all them rednecks, them gun-toting rednecks on the right, those rednecks who are just sick and tired of being pushed around, like Popeye. I can stands all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. What could we do? We've been passing all these policies and legislation and drag queen story hour and all this other stuff, burning down cities. Back during the George Floyd era, we had on the news, we had groups of white people kneeling on their hands and knees, literally kissing the feet of black people and asking them to forgive them. And that riled them up a lot, but, that wasn't enough. What could we do? Do we need to pass some more policies? Do we need to pass some laws? Or COVID didn't get them riled up enough, but the lockdowns and all that, having their grandmama and dying alone in the hospital and everything, I kind of thought that'd be enough, but they just kept on going to work as soon as they could and paying their bills and raising it. What can we do? I know what we'll do. We'll pick out the poster boy. And not only will we assassinate him, that ain't good enough. Like, somebody broke in his house in the middle of the night and in the struggle he got killed or something. Or like, a reckless driver on the highway ran him off the road and he died in the car wreck, something like that, No. We're going to have him basically on live television. And we'll assassinate him on live television, graphically. That's what we'll do. Even people who are on the right, I know a lot of y'all, because you're on the right and you're not very thoroughly studied in history and other humanities, you like to think that people on the right with you are the good guys. Because the people on the right aren't the good guys, well, then that means that it's possible that you're not a good guy. So you have to believe that, man, if you're on the right, you're the good guys. This is a struggle between the conservatives and the liberals. It's really not. These terms really can be like a misnomer, like they're thrown around and misused, but you think, oh, it's just as simple as that, like male, female, you got conservatives and liberals. And that's just not the case. You think about, we're on the right because the right is the good side. So to think that there are people on the right who have very evil, nefarious plans for society, and they have their own personal agenda that they want to see accomplished, and so they may agree with you politically on social issues, but they have a whole bunch more plans over here that's what they really want to accomplish. But they're on the right with you there. The right is not like a football team, folks. The only thing, when someone says I'm on the right or that person's on the right, what they mean is like the grouping of their beliefs and worldview, principles and such, fall on a certain spectrum of beliefs that are on the right. But these terms are like arbitrary terms people have created to kind of sort out, like a teleontology, like a sorting system of the horribly diverse, types of human beliefs and worldviews and perspectives and principles and stuff. We create these terms right and left so we can kind of sort them out to kind of give people a general idea of what that person believes. Like if someone says to you, I'm on the right, then you can pretty well go with it that they are if they truly are on the right, that they're in favor of a small government. Okay? That's what someone says I'm on the left, then you can pretty well presume that that person is in favor of a large government and like a society is being managed by, their betters in government, you see. I mean, so those types of principles kind of coagulate together. But that doesn't mean that those people whose principles coagulate together are somehow or another a team. That they're all working together and, one man's plowing and the other man's planting and No, if that's what you believe, then that's a very naive, simplified, dare I say, dangerous perspective when it comes to things having to do with the politics and social structuring that we live in. So I'm not saying this happened, but I'm just saying consider this, that it's possible that powerful people on the right assassinated Charlie Kirk in order to stir up your emotions and fear to view people on the left as they are hunting us now. Do you see what I'm saying? Oh, they're hunting us now. Oh, I'm going to buy more guns. I'm going to get me more ammunition. I'm going to be more alert. and more judicious and conscious. I hope one of these liberals come trying to mess with me. And the whole time, it may not even be people on the left. It may not even be, liberals or progressives or anything like that. It could be, and I believe it's very likely people on the right that martyred Charlie Kirk for a greater political goal. But they need something that's gonna really be the flint or the firing pin to get you people to explode. That's what I'm suspicious of. When I look at it, I don't think, the left hired a sniper to go kill Charlie Kirk so that he would stop challenging the socialist, liberal, Marxist, feminist, LBGT worldviews on college campuses, because that's such a very powerful, important, effective thing that he's doing. So he had to be stopped. I mean, come on now. I mean, think about it. I mean, what kind of a real and present threat is Charlie Kirk to the DNC? I understand. He was very, very, very instrumental in helping get Trump elected as what is basically a marketer for political ideas, right? I mean, it's basically like a PR kind of guy, But in all reality, what actual power did this 31-year-old man with Turning Point USC, like actual political leverage was he accomplishing that meant that he had to be assassinated? It doesn't make sense. Had this been some blue-haired kid, some blue-haired autistic mama's boy in his basement playing video games and hanging out on Reddit or 4chan or whatever, who went and stole daddy's rifle out the closet and whatever, maybe so. Maybe so. But something like this, that is clearly someone who knew how to use a firearm, why would he need to be assassinated basically on live television in front of thousands and thousands of people that would send a message that you alternative media people, you and your big mouse and your laptops and your internet servers, we can silence you, and this is an example of it. See, it doesn't make sense to me that this would actually be the left who would choose Charlie Kirk to assassinate. But if it was people on the right, and this is really even a misnomer, because I don't really believe that Trump himself is a conservative. I've talked and written about that ad nauseum. But he's a nationalist and he's a populist. He's not a conservative. He's not even really close. I mean, we have some overlap, but, So, and even if I'm not saying that Trump did it or Trump ordered it, nothing like that, because I understand, because I've studied history and I'm familiar, that the president actually has very little actual power compared to the systems and departments behind it, and then the people who are so wealthy and powerful that they actually pretty much do live outside of the law, But that's just kind of where I come down at it. I'm just very, very suspicious that this was not an assassination engineered by political rivals on the left. I'll give you a story real quick, and then my file's getting big, my video's getting too long, and I'm old and I'm getting tired and tired. I need to get in the bed. I'm old, fat, and tired. But I don't have the information in front of me, but to know the actual date. But back around the first part of the century, I'll just do a quick Google search. This is on the fly. 1898. There was a battleship sitting in Havana Harbor down in Cuba. And it blew up. boom, it blew up. For no good reason. He was sitting there and minding his own damn business, and boom, it sank, killed a bunch of sailors. And this was during rising tensions between the United States of America and the nation of Spain. The Spain still had a bunch of overseas holdings like Cuba. A lot of islands in the Caribbean, a good many islands in the Pacific, that sort of stuff. Guess what else also happened in 1898? The beginning of the Spanish-American War. Yeah. Now, how did that happen? You may remember in history, if you study history at all, there was a fellow named Theodore Roosevelt who had a bunch of like cavalry officers. This is back when wars were fought on horseback, called the Rough Riders, you know. The storming of San Juan Hill down in Cuba and stuff, President Roosevelt, prior to being the president, led the Rough Riders, and they stormed San Juan Hill, and that was during the Spanish-American War. Yeah, so we went to war with Spain. What's that got to do with two things? Well, the story in the media that was very well believed because of what had been told in the news prior to that about how evil Spain was. The story was that Spain had so maliciously and evilly, is that a word? Evilly torpedoed and sank the USS Maine. And just like remember the Alamo for the Mexican-American War, the big mantra in the news and the war posters and everything was, remember the Maine. And we marched off to war, and a lot of American soldiers got killed, and I guess a lot of Spanish soldiers got killed because we won the war, and we took Cuba and some other Spanish holdings down in the Caribbean, and we got the Philippines. That's when we took the Philippines and stuff. And that is the conflict that transformed the United States of America from being a developing country that was kind of coming into its own to actually being a global power. See, that was 1898. Well, by, 1914, I think? That's 16 years later, guess what? World War I. And then that was over in 1918, and then in 1940? I think that's 40 or 41. It's late, okay? That's when we entered World War II. And after World War II, we ain't looked back. Basically, the whole world has danced to the beat of our drum. But it was the Spanish-American War in 1898 when we finally entered the realm of being a global power. We took Puerto Rico, we took Guam, we took the Philippines, all because Spain torpedoed the USS Maine. Now, some of my fellow conservatives on the right might hear that story and say, well, hell yeah, boy. Them damn Spaniards shouldn't have been torpedoing our warship. Yeah, it's a good thing. We showed them we was boss, and we took Guam and the Philippines and Cuba. Yeah, we taught them a lesson. They effed around and found out. Pass me a new beer, man. My beer is hot over here. Pass me a cold beer. That'd be real cool and all, except for one thing. Years later, they went and they studied the wreckage of the USS Maine that was sitting on the bottom, and they found out that what sank the Maine, it was a steamship. What sank the Maine was their boiler had blown up. It was, I guess, the mismanagement or the lack of maintenance. I don't remember what actually caused the boiler to blow up, but it was, you might as well say, a mechanical error or operational error that blew the boiler up and sank the USS Maine. And then the United States government and the arbor-willing media said, Spain torpedoed the USS Maine. Let's go take Cuba, Guam, the Philippines, whatever from them. And in the meantime, we're going to get a bunch of Americans killed, and we're going to kill a bunch of Spaniards All I'm saying is with Charlie Kirk's assassination, you might do yourself and the rest of society, which includes your babies, a favor to step back a little bit and consider that it may not be the story that you're hearing all of your friends and your media celebrity types you follow that are putting out to you. Remember the main. Remember the main. Remember that this is an evil, deceptive, and temporal world. So it is brand new Thursday, September 11th. It's almost 1 a.m. So Big Daddy is going to bed. Charlie Kirk, I wasn't a real big fan of Charlie Kirk. We were on the same side of the political spectrum, but it was kind of, his content was kind of boring to me. It wasn't really engaging. So I wasn't a huge Charlie Kirk fan. I mean, I was years ago when he first came on the scene. But it's a horrible tragedy to think that this 31-year-old young man with children. I don't remember how old they are, and I haven't seen in the news. So like I said, I've been real busy today, but I know they were in the single digits, like 3 and 5 or something. And at that age, that they're probably not going to have any actual memories of daddy. And that's a horrible, horrible thing. I do believe, just from looking at his content, of course I didn't know him personally, that had he had a choice, had he known, and he may have known, that his life was in imminent danger, that a man like Charlie Kirk would have chosen to go into the mouth of the lion, to live on his feet rather than die on his knees, even though he looks like he's got a vitamin D deficiency. So, I mean, the man died doing what he believed God had called him to do, regardless of the cost. The Bible says no greater love has any man that he lay his life down for his friend. And that's what Charlie Kirk did. It's morning time, but good night.